On this edition of Native Report, we meet author and illustrator Michael Lyons.
And that's used for making cornbread.
We visit the Oneida Market, a unique natural health store. And we go to the University of Tulsa and learn about the Indian Law program.
Core courses in Indian law.
We also learn something new about Indian country and hear from our elders on this Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community and the Blandin Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Stacey Thunder. Author and illustrator Michael Lyons has written several children's books, comic strips, and a coloring book that incorporate the Ojibwe language. His underground comics are based upon his own and family's experiences in a form and genre that is cutting edge.
For illustrator Michael Lyons, inspiration can come from just about anywhere, in any form, at any time. The one constant is his desire to put down on a piece of drawing paper the ideas and images he sees in his mind's eye.
I carry around my sketchbook. Sometimes I'll be in a restaurant or whatever, and I'll just start doodling. When I was in high school, I decided I wanted to be a comic strip artist. You'll notice the Kiss stuff around here. I also drew Kiss a lot. And so I'd have to say my influences have been Kiss, and Gary Trudeau was a hero of mine as a kid. And so you kind of see his influence on my work. And then just throughout the years, it's sort of evolved from comic strips into children's books and coloring books and chapter books that are illustrated. In the last year, I've put up 7 different books on Amazon.com. Some are comic books, some are children's books. They're all illustrated, and a coloring book that's all in Ojibwe. When I did the first book, Dog and Maingan, I was working at Leech Lake Tribal College. And my office mate was Benny Tontz. Gawitas was his Ojibwe name. And he was a friend of my grandmother's. He was about 83 when we were friends. And for about 3 years, he would come in every day and just speak Ojibwe to me. And most of the time, I had no idea what he was saying, but I'd pick up little phrases here and there. And so it was during that time, when I was hanging out with Benny, and he was also teaching me how to sing and drum, that I thought it'd be, I knew I loved drawing, and I was doing like cartoons anyway. That's when I decided to do a children's book that would teach kids how to count to 10 in Ojibwe, and a number of animal names. I didn't put a lot of thought into it, but Dog speaks only English, and Maingan speaks Ojibwe. I guess, you could read into it that Dog's the assimilated or whatever wolf, but I really wasn't getting that political with it. And really, throughout this, there becomes sort of a narrative. They're definitely friends, and they're just sort of running around learning animal names or counting animals. But also what I wanted to do was show like the seasons change as they're doing it.
A mature theme Michael addresses is the historical trauma of the boarding school period. Only he does so in an allegorical fantasy world populated by vampires and elves.
Onyx Blood is probably the book I'm most proud of, but it's also been the most controversial book I've done. It's a story about a young girl who is half elf and half vampire. The name Onyx Blood denotes being bicultural and biracial. She comes from a family where her father is vampire and her mother is elfin. In the story, she's not sure where she belongs. So when she doesn't make it in elf school, they send her to a boarding school to learn how to become a proper vampire. In this book, vampires are the dominant culture. And it's sort of an allegory for the Native American boarding schools. Mixed blood, in a way, is based on my own family's story. Both of my grandparents were mixed-blooded Ojibwe and non-Indian people, and they went to boarding school. And so I guess I did want to sort of write a story about, like Amix, my grandfather ran away from boarding school and was brought back a number of times. And so the theme was sort of there, but it just kind of came to me. I started writing and it just sort of poured out.
Show us what you do.
Okay, when I start out, basically this is my sketchbook. I've been keeping sketchbooks for years. And the sketchbooks are both diaries and little sketches, obviously. So every book started out in the sketchbook just with ideas. Sometimes I'll start writing down dialogue. And here we see, this is Amix Blood's older sister, Lilith. So I start with pencil, then I use ink, and I'll ink over it, then I'll scan it, and make a print, then I'll add the color. Then once the color is done, I'll scan it again, and by this time I've typed out all the words. It ends up looking like this, from this, and you see it's my screensaver too. This is a good shot too. Spoiler alert, Santa becomes a vampire.
While making Santa a bad guy has proven to be somewhat controversial, his children's books are less so and are very popular when he makes classroom presentations.
Little Cutie is a ragged red and white teddy bear who lives on a reservation. And one morning he overhears the adults talking about Aubrey, the little girl who he belongs to. And the dad figure says, you know, don't you think Aubrey's getting a little old for stuffed animals? The moral of Little Cutie, I guess, would be to accept yourself for who you really are. When I go into classrooms and I read this, I'm really well received. And I do it not so much because I'm passionate about people learning Ojibwe, but I really love when Native kids can feel proud of just seeing it represented in a classroom. When I come in and I talk about how cool it is to speak Ojibwe, and the non-Indian kids too are thrilled to learn words. They're very open-minded about it. There's no resistance from the kids. But I'm happy to do that kind of thing just to be like a good role model or just an example of positive Ojibwe person. Native issues come up in my art almost by accident, really, but I didn't set out beforehand to say, I'm going to write a book with Ojibwe words in it, or they're not educational. You may learn Ojibwe by it, but that's not the main focus. They're mostly just entertainment.
Did you know that Tulsa, Oklahoma was once part of what was known as the Indian Territory? The Indian Territory came about as a result of Congress passing the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Treaties removing eastern tribes followed this act of Congress. The Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, Chickasaw, and Seminole peoples were forcibly removed from the southeast by the federal government. The city now known as Tulsa was first settled by the Turtle Clan of the Muskogee Creek Nation between 1828 and 1836. Today, Tulsa is the second largest city in Oklahoma and continues to honor its Native nations in local museums, universities, and Native American events.
Next, the Oneida Market, which is owned and operated by the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, is a source for organically grown native foods and natural health remedies. The market supports and buys from local businesses and farmers, preserves economic diversity of the region, and offers consumers a healthier option.
Sovereignty, with respect to Native nations, is their independent authority to govern themselves. But there is a growing movement for what is called food sovereignty. For the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, it is an all-encompassing concept.
One of the key elements in sovereignty is being able to take care of yourself in any regard. You know, being that self-sufficiency, create that self-sufficiency. Food being something we cannot do without. It becomes a term, food sovereignty, where we make the choices that allows us to feed ourselves, be self-sufficient in that area. In order to continue surviving, we had to create a balance. Balance being our needs and the needs of Mother Earth. You know, she provides food and all of the necessities, the rain, sunshine, all of those kind of things. So to find that balance of what we can take and what we need to put back. The whole overall goal is to increase our health, you know, in regards to making it better, decrease the burdens of what modern day food has brought on us.
OSIFS is an acronym for Oneida Community Integrated Food Systems, a collaboration of entities such as Junhinqua, the Organic Farm, and the Farmers Market. This also includes the Oneida Market Natural Health Store.
The teas we blend here, they're medicinal teas. I've had the recipes with Junhinqua when we started out as Junhinqua Retail for probably over 20 years, and prior to that they've just been kind of passed down. But what we do with that is we take a blend of different individual medicinal teas and blend it into one specific purpose.
Crystal has been with the health store since 2006. All products on this side of the Oneida Market are organic, from the teas to the health products, even the frozen foods. Much of it is produced locally.
These products are made from a local Native American woman. We have a couple different salves and essential oils, and just like the herbs, the oils are that strongest component of that plant. But you use essential oils more as aromatherapy. You smell them. But you can definitely put them on the skin. They still have medicinal values that way as well. This corn is coming from Junhinqua Organic Farm has taken the responsibility of keeping up the traditional heirloom white corn. So every year they're planting, 8 acres about approximately, and then hand harvesting, selecting seed, and then replanting every single year. So this is the corn that comes off the cob like this. It's braided. The cannery has also taken it a step further and made corn mush flour, and this is turned into like a porridge basically. Sometimes it's added with berries and maple syrup and whatnot, and then they would eat it like that, warm. And then we have a corn flour, and that's used for making cornbread. And the cornbread is a round wheel with the beans and water basically, and it's boiled. All of the produce, like the jams and the salsa, that comes from Junhinqua's organic garden. And then again, cannery produces it, and then we are the outlet. The Oneida Market is the outlet to get that into the consumer's hands. The Oneida Nation has Black Angus beef, and there's no steroids, hormones, antibiotics, and we get fresh meat in every Wednesday for the community. Besides having the Black Angus beef, we also have a grass-fed bison that the Oneida Nation does, and then Junhinqua, the organic farm, they have a grass-fed beef. So we get those a little bit more sporadically, but the Black Angus we always have on hand.
OSIF's members continue to strive toward food self-sustainability for the community, all the while taking into consideration the health of the individual.
We supply some of the effort into creating gardens through Junhinqua. They go out and work the land and things like that for them, for the community members. But then individuals do gardening on their own. So we're right around 80 gardens within the community, within our territory, that supply sustenance to the community members. Some of them are multifamily, some of them are just individual family. We have the ability now to fill our own shelves. If we can fill our own shelves, we're doing all of our themselves a favor, you know, creating jobs, creating opportunity, creating healthier foods, all of those things. There's a little catchphrase that our OSIF's team has come up with, and it kind of wraps everything up into a phrase, and it's you can either pay the farmer or you can pay the doctor. And it's there in that statement, they're again going back to getting that understanding that in order to take care of ourselves, we need to take care of our traditions, which is we've always been traditionally farmers, and we've always sought to find that ability to make a living with the earth rather than off the earth.
What is so special about these ponies?
Well, these ponies were bred by the Bois Forte Band in northern Minnesota and also partly in Canada. At one time there was a herd of over 1,000 ponies, and in the 1940s they didn't see any use for them. Actually what happened was the missionaries came to the reservation, and one of our elders said that they felt that it was inappropriate for the children to see horses breeding, and that was their determination to destroy the herd and have them sent to the meatpacking plant. And so they became extinct in the United States. There were only 4 left, and they were living on an island near Lac La Croix up in Canada. And one of our band members took an interest, and with the Baptist minister from Bois Forte, they went up there and retrieved those 4 remaining horses and started breeding them until they had a small herd. We always had stories, and our elders always talked about the horses that they had.
The University of Tulsa College of Law is a leading research center for Native American law and history. With more than 35 federally recognized nations in Oklahoma, the College of Law is a natural setting for the Native American Law Center, which offers 3 different types of certificates and degrees.
It is early afternoon as we reach John Rogers Hall on the University of Tulsa campus, home to the Native American Law Center. Today, we'll meet Professor of Law Judith Royster.
I got into Indian law because I was at the University of Wisconsin Law School in the mid-1980s, and they brought in a professor, Rob Williams, who's Lumbee, to teach federal Indian law. And it had never been offered before, and several of my friends and I looked at it and said, doesn't that look interesting? And there you go, right? Here it is almost 30 years later, and it became a career. And it's one of the reasons that I think that it's so important for law schools to offer these sorts of a broad range of elective courses to their students, because you never know what's going to capture someone's interest and wind up being their profession.
So Judith, you were co-editor of Felix Cohen's Handbook of Federal Indian Law, and how was that experience?
The book had not been updated. It's the primary book in federal Indian law for judges and lawyers and law students. It had not been updated since the early 1980s, and as you know, federal Indian law has changed just a bit since the early 1980s. A group of people, in particular Nell Jessup Newton, who's now the dean at Notre Dame, and Sam Deloria, who was then with the American Indian Law Center housed at UNM, wanted this book updated badly. It needed to be updated badly, and they got together a group of law professors for the original update, which was 2005, I think. About 40 of us worked on that, about 7 or 8 of us as editors, and then the group of editors has continued to update it and produce the 2012 edition. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
Professor Royster, who is also the Assistant Director for the American Indian Law Center, explained how the program has adjusted to the digital age.
The university, in fact, is an outgrowth of the Presbyterian School for Indian Girls, established in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and at one point run by the granddaughter of Samuel Worcester of Worcester versus Georgia fame. So our connection, we think, goes back to the beginnings of federal Indian law. So we offer a concentration at the JD level, Certificate in Native American Law for students getting their original law degrees, that we have been offering now for close to 25 years. So we've got a large group of graduates who hold that. We also offer an advanced degree, what's called an LLM in Indian law, actually in Indian and Indigenous law, for students who already hold a JD, so lawyers already who want to specialize in Indian law, who may have not had an opportunity at their law schools or may have gotten out in practice and realized that this is what they wanted to do. And then our newest degree is for non-lawyers, and that is a Master's of Jurisprudence in Indian law. It's an entirely online degree. A master's degree does not qualify anyone to sit for the bar, but we're offering it as a way to reach a group of people who need to know something about Indian law, who don't want to practice, but who in their dealings as tribal officials or tribal officers or people who work with tribes in a corporate environment or in any capacity need to know something about the law in order to do this right. We have about 70 students in the program now. We are only entering our 3rd year, but we have graduated our first few students. You can take the program full-time, but most students go part-time. So it takes about 2 years to 3 years part-time. So we have students from all over the country. We have students from the East Coast, from Wisconsin, from Georgia and Mississippi, several students from Arizona. Probably about 1/3 of our students at this point are from Oklahoma, but the rest of them are scattered all over the country.
For those of our viewers that did not attend law school, could you explain the Socratic Method?
We do a kinder, gentler Socratic method. How's that? But it's basically through question and answer, that the students do the reading ahead of time, and then the time in class is spent a lot in a question and answer between the professor and the students to sort of draw out the main points of the cases and the statutes. It's an adjustment for a longtime teacher, particularly that the teacher's bane of dead air, right? You ask a question and no one answers, except online you ask a question and they can hear your voice, but they're typing their answers, and so there's going to be some lag time, and adjusting to that is actually the most difficult part. But it's surprisingly interactive.
The University of Tulsa has a long-standing connection to the Indian law community and is within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Muskogee Creek Nation.
There are 39 federally recognized tribes in the state of Oklahoma, and virtually all of the state, aside from the Panhandle and an area around Oklahoma City, was the Indian territory at one point. So the Indian law issues are absolutely pervasive in this state. We have a former district judge for the Creek Nation who teaches as an adjunct for us. At one point, for the Osage tribe, for example, our graduates were the tribal judge, the prosecutor, and the defense counsel. Our students are the primary AG's office for the Chickasaws, and so we like to see our students placed in those positions, and that in turn gives us a great deal of opportunity to interact with the tribes. We really are at a time in Indian law where the political branches of government, the Congress and the executive branch, are by and large, not entirely, but by and large supportive. The Supreme Court is by and large not supportive, and it makes it an interesting time in history where so much more Indian law, I think, needs to be made out of the courts, or at least out of the federal courts, and into the tribal courts, and there is so much the tribes are doing. And it's a really exciting time to train both attorneys at the JD level and to train non-attorneys at the Masters of Jurisprudence level, who are the ones who are going to go out and do that work.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us at nativereport.org and Facebook. Thank you for spending time with us here on Native Report. I'm Stacey Thunder. We'll see you next time.
Stacey Thunder is a member of and legal counsel for the Red Lake Nation, and Ted Johnson is a member of the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa and is chair for the American Indian Studies Department on the campus of the University of Minnesota Duluth. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux Community and the Blandin Foundation.